What's up guys, welcome to another episode of Be Tailored. I'm Brandon and today we're going to be working on more 240 stuff. But I got a little surprise for you. We're not working on my 240 today. We're working on my good friend Robbie. His name's Robbie. I didn't forget that, I'm not an awful person. Robbie's got this awesome 242 with a KA, pretty much stock except he's got really nice suspension setup on it. But he's having overheating issues. I helped him the other night, tried to bleed it, and still overheated, so I think the next best step to take is by changing the thermostat out. And we're also going to change the coolant temp sensor to make sure everything's reading correctly there, so let's get to it. This is Robbie's 1992 Nissan 240SX. On older cars like this, it's really easy to access various areas within an engine bay. In our case, all that's holding us back are a few zip ties. So this piece right here is our thermostat that we're going to be changing out. After removing various zip ties left by the previous owner, we're finally able to remove the stock air ducting. Now that we have access to the clutch fan, we can inspect it for wear. Because these cars are getting old, many of the plastics like the fan can crack with age. But this one looks to be in good shape, so we're going to keep it. The clutches on these fans can steal away some of your engine power, so an electric fan setup is a common and clean alternative. Removing the fan is a simple process requiring the removal of only 4 10mm nuts. It can be useful to have another 10mm wrench handy to keep the fan from rotating. Next, we remove the bolts that fasten the thermostat housing to the block. These bolts can shear quite easy and don't require much torque upon removal, so be careful. Alright, so we've got most of the stuff torn down off the motor, like the intake and all that. And before we pulled off the thermostat housing, we almost forgot to grab some RTV make. That we didn't have any RTV makers, so we're gonna make a run. All the other auto stores are closed, of course, this late at night, so we're gonna make a run to Walmart. Hopefully they have something. If not, we'll just have to finish the project in the morning, see where we can get to tonight. And yeah, let's make a run. Alright, so we got our RTV, our gray stuff. Can't continue without that because you can't seal it. Those 3 bolts come off, and we got our thermostat. Coolant has a very sweet taste and smell to animals, and it's also very poisonous, so be sure to have some drip pans ready to catch all of your extra coolant. A nice milky color in there.
Is that good or bad?
Well, milky's not a good thing.
Oh, shit.
It's not milky. I think it's just old
pipe.
Dirty, rusty.
Just kind of...
Yep, there we go. Look at that. Beautiful.
Yeah, well, not so much.
Beautiful.
Just pull it out?
Yeah, let's go ahead and pull it out.
That's the gasket for the water neck. Oh my god.
So with these thermostats, you'll notice that they should have this little bleeder valve up top, kind of in that corner right there. It's kind of hard to see, but basically you want to make sure that's installed at a 12 o'clock position so that any air that may be trapped in your system can flow through that and you can get all the air out. Otherwise, if it's at the 6 o'clock position, all that air is just going to stay trapped down there and it's going to be really hard to get that all out of your system, so make sure that's installed upright. Just want to take a look at that. It looks really grot. As many Nissan owners know, you don't want to lose this small metal clip to fasten your sensors in.
Couldn't hurt to replace it already.
What's going on here?
So there's oil in my water neck.
Oh no.
Like a lot.
Oh. You know, head gasket could be a thing.
Yeah, that's
It's a big job. That could be your overheating issue, to be honest. It would explain all the oil leakage between the head and the block. So sorry, Robbie.
Forget I mentioned the oil in my water neck.
I'm so sorry. I mean, it's fixable, I bet.
Yeah.
It just needs a little bit of work. Oh, Robbie.
See, I thought something when I looked at the...
Yeah, it definitely
thermostat,
looks like really black.
But my exhaust doesn't smell like coolant, though. I figured with it being straight piped, I would smell it if it smelled like coolant.
Not necessarily.
Or does head gasket go, like, it can either be, like, inward, like, coolant into oil, or outward, like,
Yeah,
oil into
it
coolant?
can...
Shit.
Oil can go into your coolant passageways, and it's definitely not something you want to ride out because that can thin out your oil, and you can really wear out your bearings. The way I understand, I could be wrong. Let me know if I'm wrong. I bet I'm no master mechanic, but oil in your coolant is definitely not good.
It's burned oil for a little bit, but I figured that was just like KA's burn oil. Like that's a thing. I guess that's where the oil's going.
Did you say that he rebuilt this?
Rebuilt.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things.
We're almost certain that the engine has a failed head gasket, but with so little time, we decided to continue on by applying our RTV gasket maker. It's important to apply it evenly to get a good seal. Remember not to over-torque these small bolts when tightening.
So we just got done putting everything back together. The thermostat's in, all the the air ducting is put back where it needs to be. But it's pretty late and we don't want to disturb the neighbors. So we're gonna wait till the morning, come back at it and put more coolant in it and bleed it. And Robbie's got some thinking he's gonna do tonight, so.
Welcome to day 2 of working on Robbie's car, where we're finishing up the cooling system, thermostat, and we're currently bleeding the car right now, so let's go and see what Robbie's up to. Be sure to top off the radiator when coolant levels drop.
So when you're bleeding the car, you want to make sure that your heat's all the way on, blowing inside the cabin. You also want to jack up the front of the car so that any air bubbles inside the system can flow to the front and come out the radiator so you can get those bubbles out.
Look for a bleed screw in the water neck and remove it to release any trapped air in the system.
Got on it a bit. Always sounds good, Robbie. Thanks for bringing your car over. I was glad to work on it. Robbie has a few options that he's going to go with. I'm not going to go into detail, but I'm trying to nudge him in one direction. We'll see if he takes it. All depends on what Robert at RB Adrenaline Factory says. But now that we're done with Robbie's car, it's time to start working on my fiance's car because we're going to be taking a big road trip here soon. So enter car number 2. So Des and I are going to be making a little road trip soon, so we definitely want to make sure that the Mazda has good oil change before we start going, good wipers and whatnot, because it's going to be about a 14-hour drive, and before those kind of drives you should always check off your maintenance items and make sure your car is running great. Now I know a lot of you who are watching this already know how to do all this stuff, but I know there are a few of my subscribers who aren't keen on doing stuff DIY on their cars as far as changing the oil and stuff, so I figure I might as well walk through me changing the oil on Desiree's car just to kind of give you an idea of what it takes. It's a really simple process and all you need are a few simple tools and a little common knowledge. Now one of the first steps I take into changing the oil is making sure that the car has been running for a little bit so that all the oil's circulated and warm, and that makes sure we have a nice flow that comes out, especially when it's cold. It takes forever for all the oil to drain out, so make sure the car is a little warmed up before you start. Then after it's warmed up, pop your hood, bro. Plasti dip. So one of the biggest questions I get from my non-car friends is, you know, what type of oil should I put in my car and what oil filter should I use? As far as your oil filter, you want to make sure to look up your car online. Most of the time if you go to Walmart or AutoZone, they have a kiosk there that'll tell you what number goes to your specific vehicle, so keep in mind your engine size, type of vehicle, year, all that great stuff. As far as the viscosity of oil to use on your car, most modern cars have an oil cap with numbers on it. Those numbers are going to tell you the exact viscosity that you need. For example, on Desiree's oil cap we have 5W20. So we're going to use 5W20 motor oil. Now some cars will only take synthetic oil, so if you have a car that needs synthetic oil, most of the time it's going to say so on the cap. Otherwise you can use conventional oil, semi-synthetic, or full synthetic. I like to use full synthetic just because it's really consistent and it gives me peace of mind. And you don't always have to, but I like to check my oil before I start the whole process just to make sure that we're not burning up too much oil. It's looking pretty good. Another thing I like to do is remove the oil cap so that we make sure all the oil flows out freely.
When you're raising the car, it's important to support the vehicle with good jack stands and the designated jacking points for safety. Don't forget your oil pan.
When you're taking this stuff off, you definitely want to make sure you have the right tools so that you don't end up rounding anything off and then you're in a bigger mess than you need to be. Another trick for taking the oil out is when you have the drain plug almost all the way out, push it against the motor, and then when you're ready, pop it off quick. It should all come out easy like that. Of course I made a mess. Ideally, you want to change your oil once every 5,000 miles, depending on what kind of oil you're using, or at least 4 times a year. But that all depends on your driving habits, what you use in the car for. I like to change my oil way sooner than it needs to be, especially since I use full synthetic. I could wait until at least 5,000 miles before I needed to change it. But I grew up with the old habits of my dad, so I change my oil every 3,000 miles, especially on the 240 since they get pushed hard. Some people wait way too long to change their oil. They wait until it's black or they've consumed all of their oil to change it. And that's definitely not the way to go. This is preventive maintenance that's cheap and easy to do. So never neglect the oil in your car because it is the lifeblood of your engine. Always have a drip pan and some rags handy, and some kitty litter if you make a mess. Now when you're putting on a new filter, make sure that you lube up the O-ring with some new oil so that way it doesn't stick to the block, and when you go to put a new oil filter on later, you get double gasket and oil spillage everywhere, and you don't want that, so lube is always a good thing. Now you don't need to tighten your filter on too much. I generally go 3/4 of a turn. And that's tight enough. Once pressure builds up, it's really gonna suck this oil filter on there even more, which makes it difficult to get off in the future. Once all your oil is drained out, you can go ahead and replace the plug. Thread it in with your finger because you don't want to cross thread anything. And when you tighten everything down, torque everything to specifications. And there we go. You definitely want to make sure your car is level before you start pouring, that way you get an even read from your dipstick. Always periodically check to make sure you don't overfill. Alright, looks like we're pretty good. We filled it to the top mark there, so we'll give it a start, prime the system, and then we'll check back again. Always make sure to check underneath your car to make sure you don't find any leaks coming from your engine. If you find any, make sure to cut the vehicle off immediately and check underneath and see where it's coming from. If not, you're free to proceed to the next step,
which consists of topping off the oil levels again since the oil filter is now full of fresh engine oil.
And we're good. So that's kind of the basics of how to change your oil. I know it's a really simple process. A lot of you guys already know it, but I know some of you have never touched a car before, and you know that's perfectly fine. You got to start somewhere. Knowing how to take care of your car, I think, is one of the most important aspects of having a car. I'm not saying you have to be a mechanical genius in order to own a car, but it's always good to know the basics, how to change your oil, how to change tires, brakes, and stuff like that. It can save you a little money at the shop, and it can give you a really gratifying feeling once you know it's been done yourself. If you're not sure what to do though, there's absolutely no shaming asking questions, asking for help, so if you're interested in working on your car, just dive for it. I definitely had no idea what I was doing when I started out with cars, but the only way you can gain that know-how is just by diving in. I think that's going to be it for today's video though. I know it was a little different. Let me know in the comments below what you liked, what you would have liked to seen, or what you'd like to see in the future. Make sure to hit that like button if you guys liked what you saw, as it helps me to expand to new audiences. As always, I'll catch you guys next time. Have a great day.